Call this Topsham Select Board Select Board meeting to order, September 21, 2023, in the Donald A. Russell Meeting Room. Would you all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Oh, Patty, would you call that roll?
I will. David Douglas.
I am here.
Mary Brilliant.
Yeah.
Ruth Lyons.
Present.
Nat Nixon.
Oh, present.
Roland Tubbs.
Here.
Alan's present. And our town manager is also at the table.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye, Pat. Town manager, speaking of.
Hey, welcome everyone. Absentee ballot for the November 7th election will be available on October 10th. New dog licenses will be available also in the clerk's office and online beginning October 15th. This past week has been very busy with the school department and police department. As the police department was addressing two separate bomb threats at Mount Ararat Middle School. Both threats were received from the school office voicemail boxes after business hours. The PD is waiting for subpoenas and attempts to determine the source of calls. So if anybody hasn't heard, that's the update there. New traffic circle on the Mall Road in front of Market Basket is approximately 60% complete. We expect the road to open late next month. That's the last we heard. There's been some overhead images that have been put out on the Town of Topsham website and other social media platforms. And the last thing is Joan Vermette, who serves as the Topsham Police Department's part-time records clerk, will be retiring tomorrow. Joan has served the police department for 53 years. And you know, if you walk the halls of the police department, you'll see pictures in the 1970s and even today, and she looks the same. So I just want to say, Joan, on behalf of the town staff, if you're watching, I thank you for your remarkable service to the town and wish you the best in retirement. That's all I have.
Excellent. Any questions of the manager? Certainly echo those statements. 53 years. It's amazing. Board and committee reports and updates. Update on Brother Topsham traffic signal modernization, Brian Keyser, and multimodal project manager, MDOT with VHP. And your PE, sorry.
No, that's fine. So again, your agenda says Brian Keyser with Maine DOT. He wasn't able to make it tonight. So I am here and instead Jason Reddy with VHP. I'm a traffic engineer for VHP in the offices here. So you have in your packet just kind of a brief one pager on the project. I'll kind of briefly go over the project and you know really what we're looking for. And it's just public comment and informational for proposing here. So this is actually a Brunswick and Topsham project. They'll be bid together administratively. They're going to be separated, but for all intents, it's going to be 17 intersections between Topsham and Brunswick. It's going to be 10 in Topsham. So I'll just kind of go down through the list here. There's also a map in your packet at the bottom that kind of shows the locations, but you can see it's along 196 and also the intersection of Main Street and Elm Street. You remember I was here probably a year ago talking about that intersection as well. So that's, I believe, almost all the way together. Maybe it has been completed at this time. So the reason that's on there is just we're doing kind of a small incremental update, which brings it more synchronous to the whole system as far as communication, remote communications, and a few minor things. But otherwise, it's Route 196 and Town Fair Drive. So with this one, we just want to be clear that we're not doing any kind of ground disturbances or anything like that. This is all going to be within the existing signal control cabinets, along with some other upgrades. So in general, it's going to be replacing the signal controller. That's the computer that kind of runs and tells the intersection what to be doing. There's also going to be an FNU device, which is a field monitoring unit, which will allow remote communications, but also provide some, we'll call it like diagnostic and monitoring data about the intersection. So when things go wrong, we can have a better understanding and be able to more quickly diagnose what's going on. It's going to be including CV2X as part of that field monitoring unit, and the CVs, car connected vehicles to everything. So that's you know, with certain advanced cars, or if you have a certain, application on your phone, you know, it'll give you certain notifications like, you know, 10 seconds to green, 5 seconds to green, you know, that kind of thing, that gives you that advanced notification. But also if someone were to hit like a pedestrian button, you know, that same app or an advanced, very new vehicle will say, you know, pedestrian in crosswalk ahead. So it'll give you that kind of thing, and as technology kind of catches up, we'll already be here, waiting, you know, with that capability, already. You'll see the next one is just with retroreflective signal plates. So you'll see that sometimes, you know, you'll just have a blank, or all black behind the red, yellow, and green, or along 196, there's a lot with the yellow background, and that makes it a lot more noticeable for drivers, especially in, you know, after hours or in rainy weather, or for certain visually impaired people. So that makes it, that's a safety improvement. And I guess the last point is just, you do have existing fiber communications up to the intersections, but we're going to be providing the FMU, which is now like a cellular based. So it will have kind of a redundancy there. That's kind of the general overview, but I'm, you know, certainly willing to take questions or comments or anything about what the project's going to be about.
Sorry, oh, go ahead, Matt. No, go, I want you to.
Grid smart. Where does that digital, where does that data go? Does it go to DOT or VHB or?
So specifically, the grid smart camera does have the ability to kind of count cars, but it's not like it's, you know, recording video or anything. And what is going to happen is, you know, initially the grid smart will, you know, store that counting data, you know, to tell you the lefts, throughs, and rights from each approach. That's initially going to be stored in the controller, but the way that we have it set up is that is actually going to be uploaded through to a Maine DOT called a data repository, so that you do have that kind of constant data available for use. Okay.
Couple ones, I'll get to the first comment, talking the retro reflective signal and backplates, and it says where needed. So I've been here almost 12 years, and that's in that time frame, the lights on 196 around the mall, actually, I think all of 196. That was a discussion point that that board at the time was very adamant that they have those because it's an east-west road. And it was a lot of the lights were being blocked out. We had a tremendous amount of feedback because of depending on time of day, you weren't seeing them as well. So I hope where they are today, they continue, not just where as needed.
Right. So for clarification, by where needed, that means where they aren't currently.
Okay.
So I mean,
Okay.
the existing ones that are still in good condition, I mean, will remain, but for all other approaches that don't have it, we will provide as part of the design of this project.
And then my question, so back when those lights were first, the last time this rehab happened, but I know this isn't a rehab, but this is just digital. One of the things that was talked about in the great part of the set of lights here on 196 is that provided you're doing the speed limit on 196 in order to move traffic, you're doing the speed limit and you're at the 295 interchange, and it goes green, it's gonna run green all the way straight through, and that doesn't happen. They said it was gonna happen, and it doesn't happen. You'll go light to light to light. Are we gonna see any improvements through this now, you think?
Yes.
Please.
Yes, for sure, that is part of it. I think probably a lot of the problems with that is not having good communication back to the central server, we'll call it, that kind of coordinates, and that's what's called traffic signal coordination. So as part of our project, you know, we'll definitely ensure that communication is still working, or make sure that it's upgraded so that it works. But also we do have that redundancy where it will use the cellular based FMU to maintain that instead of where before we might have problems with loss of communications. But as part of our design, there will also be optimization of the signal timing and that coordination, so you do get the green progression as you're driving.
Perfect. We've been waiting 10 years. Make it happen.
As soon as we can.
Make it happen.
Yeah.
The light at on 196 for the Highland Greens and the Red Cross and for the fair. Will that be able to, because when there's, say, a function at the fair, it can take like an hour for them to leave because that light stops them, you know. Is that something that will be fixed with this?
I mean, I can't say for sure, but I think that is a function that we can provide and, what it can do is, yes, it can just kind of favor that outgoing traffic at that time instead of it backing up. And that's something, I think that's a function that we can probably provide, either automatically or even just, through through city staff to, no, town staff, excuse me, town staff to, be able to literally kind of push a button. And then that, that turns on the, Topsham Fair, timing plan, and then that can help, not only, maintain a longer green time for that exit, but also now make the progression, coming from that origin point and, going outward, to help, exit that traffic. But I wrote a note to just make sure that, we can kind of consider that.
So basically you have town control from their special effects.
I mean, I can't say for sure how it's going to be set up and who would have that, but, there's also certain capabilities within the system that, when it recognizes that there is a very long backup, that it can kind of switch over and say, let's address this, known delay, known queuing of traffic.
Like 4 o'clock in the afternoon on that Black Gas Drive.
Hopefully we'll optimize that, not having to need special plans.
I want a personal plan, that would be fantastic.
Go next.
Matt wants to preempt on his vehicle.
Exactly.
So how would say the fairgrounds know who to contact if that were the case?
I think we would just work it out with city staff. I think, Dennis here probably would be the contact for that, but, again, now we're talking out years and, it's something that we can develop, but, I've written down the comments and I think that's something we can probably address.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thanks for the update.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
Again, contact us, myself or, Brian Keiser at Maine DOT, for any other comments and,
We'll do our best.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Any public comment? Anyone have correspondence? I feel like we've gotten something now all of a sudden with anything else. Does anyone else feel that way?
No.
They're gonna have 6 stations, that's basically what I've seen. Yeah, no, you're right. Now, if there is, I'll find them next time. Any adjustments to the agenda? Good. Consent calendar, approval of the minutes of the regular select board meeting, August 17, 2023. So moved.
Second.
Motion seconded, all those in favor, 2, 5. Next up, public hearing 2379, consideration any appropriate action on an application for a special amusement permit for a fairground cafe. Just like all of our public hearings, what we do is we'll gavel open the hearing. That's when we'll take public comment during that time. After we gavel out of it, all conversation will just be between the board and if they had any questions or anything. We'll open 2379. Barry, do you have anything new you want to tell us about or?
Not really, basically,
Right up. Sorry
sorry.
about that.
No, yeah, basically, I probably have less music than I used to, because during COVID, a lot of groups just broke up, and so I'm not doing a whole lot, but I just want to have the ability to do it.
Yeah. Oh, so I do have, and I know on your previous application, you were Thursday, Friday, Saturday evenings. This time you only put Saturday 5 to 8. Do
Right.
you want to keep it just one night?
No, can we do it maybe Thursday,
3
Friday,
nights?
Saturday, but
Thanks.
I probably won't be for a while. It's gonna take
Yeah.
time to build.
I mean,
back.
this is good for a year, and the last thing I want is 6 months from now, you're like, hey, great, I can do Fridays too.
Right,
And I don't want to limit you. It's always considering what it is.
exactly.
Pretty good. I don't have any other questions. Anyone have any questions? So just for those at home, Fairground cafes put in for live music. One person, maybe up to a 3-person small, music group within the dining area. They'd be off to a corner, nothing's moved, nothing's done, and it's just during evening dinner. And that's that. So, anyone else to speak? No? Close the public hearing. We also have letters from the fire and police. They have no issues with the building or any concerns with the rowdy crowd at Fairground. Harry, I can't read your signature. What was your last name? again?
Oh, Levitt.
Levitt.
Yeah,
Sorry.
I'm a little messy.
I was looking at him like, I know it's Perry's signature, but I don't have your.
It's unmistakable.
So I will conclude, based on the findings, it is concluded that the issuance of a special amusement permit would not be detrimental to public health, safety, or welfare, or would violate municipal ordinances, rules, or regulations. Does the board agree? Yes. So the motion will be to grant the application for a special amusement permit for Fairground Cafe as meeting requirements of Maine Revised Statutes, Title 25-A, Section 1054 of the Topsham Code, Chapter 71, Article 1, Section 6 and 7.
Second.
Motion seconded. All those in favor? Unanimous. Good to go.
Thank you.
Thank you. No unfinished business, no old business. Now on the good stuff, new business. Consideration, any appropriate action on the appointment to the Naval Air Station Brunswick Restoration Advisory Board and Bike Pedestrian Committee. This evening, we interviewed 2 individuals for these 2 boards, Maggie Dumay and Susan Scow. I almost said it again. Maggie wants to be Topsham Bike and Pedestrian Committee, and I think she will make a good addition, no matter what we did to her up there. And Susan, this is not as we know, is not a Town of Topsham committee, it's a federal government committee. We met Susan, had a conversation with her about what is happening out of the Naval Air Station Brunswick Restoration Advisory. So is everyone good to take those together as one motion?
Yeah.
I make well, actually, I'll do it too, because I make a motion that we appoint Maggie Dumay to the Topsham Bike and Pedestrian Committee. And I guess I'll just say it as in Susan Scow, we approved her to the Restoration Advisory Board.
Second.
Motion seconded. All those in favor? Unanimous. 2381, consideration any appropriate action on carryovers and reserve fund balances. Oh, yeah.
Hi, this is what we do every year. We like to go over what we're gonna carry over into the new fiscal year. And just show you the balances that we have in our various special revenue and CIP accounts. And we'd like a motion, I didn't write the motion at the bottom. That's what we is like.
Anyway, that's what this handout is in front of everyone.
Yeah.
One line from each page is what's carried over, but it's detailed in the memo. So this is just physical. Does anyone have any questions? No. So I will make a motion that we carry over amounts from the fiscal year 23 budget as detailed in the memo dated September 13th, 2023, titled Carryovers and Reserves. Second. Motion seconded. All those in favor? Unanimous.
Thank you.
Thank you. Consideration 2382, consideration any appropriate action on approving the purchasing policy as proposed. Mr.
Yes, the current purchasing policy was approved by the select board back in 2015. You know, since then, it's been 8 years. The cost of goods and services has increased to a point where a significant part of our approved budget has to be approved by either the town manager position, finance director, or the select board. So much of the responsibility has gotten out of the department head's hands because of the cost of these goods and services. What we have in the proposed changes is to increase the amounts for each of those levels of approval. And also, adjusting the limits of when we do an informal purchase, whether or not we go to solicitations and where we go out for an RFP, as well as some considerations or exceptions to the RFP process as highlighted in the proposed draft. With that being said, what we've experienced, and especially in the last 3 years, is responses to RFPs when they do go out, and estimate requests as well. Basically, what we're hearing back is vendors are spending little time doing this because it does take work for a little or no profit, because it doesn't mean that they're gonna get in. So that's why we decided, we should probably increase the limits as well, so we can get some offers from vendors or contractors. At least to have a chance to take a look to see which ones that we could award those to. So the procedures for the purchasing and bids remain the same except for the amounts. And we've also included exceptions to the proposal process as highlighted in the document. So we're basically looking for the board to approve the purchasing policy as presented. However, after the publication of this policy, there are two things that we have corrected. One is on page 3, section 2B. Basically, this is the informal solicitation. Within that paragraph, at the last sentence, should read generally an informal solicitation should be used whenever purchase or contract exceeds $1,500, but is less than $25,000. So what was 5,000 should be 1,500. And the next change would be on page 6. And that if you look down on paragraph D, the last sentence, and I'll start halfway through the sentence, starting with the lowest qualified participant, you'd like to change to starting with the most qualified participant.
I also have another typo in that paragraph,
What is that?
where it says to resolicit proposals or proposals. I think it's a duplication of proposal.
Okay, and I can strike.
I'm guessing that was Walt's.
No, it wasn't.
It is tonight.
I watched it. All right, so I'll correct that as well.
Any questions with the,
Any consideration given to having just like an annual adjustment for inflation built into this?
One of the issues that we come across is within Munis software that we use, the answer is no.
There's a caveat.
Right. The answer is no, only because within our software, we have workflow authorizations. So under certain
Just
limits,
manually set them in.
yeah, I mean, we could do that, but we prefer just to come back to the board when we need to adjust. If we have to. Would you agree, Captain?
that was because you were so firm on your no.
We could very rather go back to the board as opposed to, adjusting every year.
Yeah, I'm a problem with that. I mean, so some of these have an escalator, it's just easier if you've got other things on your mind at the time, so.
Anyone else have questions, concerns, comments? So we need to approve, look to approve the purchasing policy with the 3 corrections detailed by the town manager and the rest of it, and Matt Nixon.
I was gonna make a motion.
Oh,
How about this?
do it.
I move that we approve the purchasing policy with the 3 suggested corrections as presented.
Oh, you wanted your name in it. Second. Motion seconded. All those in favor? Unanimous.
Who's still insured in this? Like, there's a lot of.
2383, consideration any appropriate action on approving the capital replacement fund policy as proposed.
Back in 2019, when the fiscal year 2020 budget was being presented, there's a capital replacement fund line that was implemented or introduced. And The select board at the time had asked for a fund policy to be drafted, and it was approved by the select board on April of 2019, prior to the printing of the budget. Since then, the fund has been utilized to pay for critical components that we have here in town as member infrastructure, things that would fail during the course of the year, that we probably didn't have enough time to go to the board and get approval. That we had a fund in place for those critical elements, whether it be, affect critical operations or public safety. As we know that in the last few years, our HVAC systems have required more repair than previously, and other things are becoming more expensive as well. Finding vendors is an issue, like I had kind of alluded to in our purchasing policy. With that being said, what we'd like to do to provide a little bit more clarity to the existing policy is we've included other items of components that we can utilize this fund for. Okay, as stated here, for instance, we've added electrical systems, plumbing systems, communication systems, ceilings, walls, equipment necessary for public health emergency, equipment necessary to continue operations, and a few others that you can see here in the draft. What we'd also like to do is cap the fund at $1 million. It was previously 500,000. Given the expense of some of these critical items, we far exceed some of those, but I think $1 million would be appropriate. Now, we wouldn't fund that immediately. That fund would grow as we carry over and not utilize that, but we cap it at $1 million. So we're asking that the select board approve the capital replacement fund policy as presented.
Question. Where you add purchasing items necessary to mitigate immediate risk of public safety, and then further down, equipment necessary during a public health emergency. Are we talking about vehicles at all? I mean, for the way it's written, it kind of seems like you could justify purchasing a vehicle or an ATV, for instance.
In our, we could utilize this fund. However, in the purchasing policy,
Talks about vehicles specifically, right?
specifically
This is
talk about
only-
used vehicles
Okay.
or purchases that were previously approved specifically through town meeting
Yeah.
that we could do.
None of this hit me until you read the last line out loud. Equipment necessary to continue operations.
It's pretty broad.
That's, yeah, because I'm sure every, Dennis has things that is important to him for his operations and are necessary, especially if it's January. And fire department has things they feel is necessary, but
This,
can we get away without? Yeah, I guess it's pretty darn broad.
we could say necessary to continue critical operations. I'm just trying to have a way of things that come up when we don't have time, but we have here to continue to run.
$1 million
Plus,
could get you.
That's critical, right? In my opinion, that's critical. I mean, obviously, everyone has a different opinion, but it can't just be public. I mean, it can't be public works, or police or fire. I mean, you could have it in this building, so I just want to make sure it's not too limiting.
The important part of this is that, even in the paragraph which would be added, is all purchases shall be in accordance with the town's purchasing policy, which states what you have to do, and we still have to bring it to the board over $25,000. Unless there's one of those exceptions. But that, of course, would be related to the board.
And if it was like a real emergency, we be in a Zoom meeting, it's done by the public, so I mean, I'm just trying to think, if you gotta do things quickly, we would do that as well.
Yeah. I have no problem if you want to strike that, it's just one of those things that. I'm not gonna say it at all.
Yeah,
But we probably did identify because we're specific in the system.
You just want to give yourself some latitude in terms of how to get this pushed through as quickly as possible as well. When you have those kind of purchases, you gotta have to be dealt with.
Would we want?
Now, this is just a fund line that we would purchase the equipment from. So because we're being more specific on what we can spend it on, we still have to go through the process and go through everything.
Okay, as long as they all line up so that, you don't have a bottleneck anywhere in the process, I'm fine.
The critical operations is.
I think that's better. And things change, different boards changes and different managers. As long as the manager doesn't change, I'm fine with that. And assistant manager.
Yeah, I'd be fine with critical.
You'll put that right in.
Now I'm just. I never hear a conversation, I think, of more, but. This has $1 million now. I'm just trying to work through all these possibilities. It has $1 million fund. $1 million can buy anything we have here, except the bill. Buy engines. They can buy an engine, they can't buy a ladder.
So
Brass tacks.
But I'm just. Should there be somewhere in here that if any purchase was over, I'm just trying to think of every policy, and maybe it's already there. You know, if it's more than $150,000,
I think we have enough in here to cover, so even if you wanted to strike that line, I can't think of anything right now. But then again.
right.
But I think critical would help. Again, you still have to abide by the purchasing policy. Yeah, for adhere to it.
So what are we looking for? Striking or critical?
Manager's cool with striking. Let's strike it. All good.
I'm cool with striking.
I'm cold with striking too.
Let's do it.
Striking was.
So it's like 3 automakers.
No,
That one.
the catch-all one.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you, Derek.
Anything else? Make a motion to approve the capital replacement fund policy with the one exception of removing the equipment necessary to continue operations.
Second.
Motion seconded, all those in favor? 2283 is done. We're on to 2384, executive session. Enter executive session pursuant to 13 MRSA subsection 456C to discuss the acquisition and disposition of real property where premature disclosure of the information would prejudice the bargaining position of the town. That's my motion.
Second.
Motion seconded.